Good evening and welcome to Dad Bods, Crabcakes, and Sports. Jason here. And if you noticed, the normal John and Mike Jason group is not all here tonight, but I do have a very special guest, Mr. Steve Melewski. Longtime Oriole fans, you all should remember Steve from about 17 years of covering the Orioles on Masson. Last year and going forward, he's covering them on his Substack, which is steveonbaseball.substack.com. Steve, thank you very much for joining us tonight. How's everything going?
It's going good, Jason. I mean, it's been a little slowed down since the season ended, but obviously with the manager news this week, it picks right up and the business of baseball goes on, man. It never slows down too much, which for those of us who are trying to attract an audience and put our work out there for the fans of the Orioles is a good thing, I think.
Absolutely. I can never get enough of it. And I guess the most important thing that we need to ask is what we ask all of our guests that are on for the first time. We're obviously called Dad Bods. We've worked hard on these for years. So I need to know, what is your go-to number one snack?
Far too many, first of all, hard to narrow them down. I mean, if it's not good for you, I probably consume it at one point or another. I've gotten a little healthier in recent years, thank goodness. And I feel pretty good right now for a guy who's been in sports over 40 years, I guess, at this point. But if you throw a good potato chip in front of me, it's not going to stick around very long.
Outstanding. That seems to be the main culprit of most of these.
Yes.
That is fantastic. Okay, well, let's jump right into it. As you said, I guess the actually what I wanted to talk to you first was how many innings did you stay awake for last night in Game 3 of the World Series?
Whatever was around 1 a.m., that was when I just couldn't make it any further. I mean, I didn't have to get up real early, but I couldn't go too much past a good hour. So I tried, man. I had it on in the bedroom, but it ended, and I had to look at the phone a couple hours later to figure out what happened.
Yeah, outstanding baseball game so far. Good series so far. I will tell you, I don't know how you feel, but I have mixed feelings here watching Toronto in the World Series and just realizing that last year they missed out on the playoffs. They were sellers at the deadline, and then the Orioles kind of find themselves in the same situation. What are your thoughts on, like, can you cheer for the Blue Jays, or like how do you feel about the whole situation?
I guess for me, I have a little bit of a soft spot for the Blue Jays for a couple of reasons. Fans who have followed my work know I love Toronto. I love Toronto as a city. I love going up there. I love Rogers Center. When that ballpark is packed and rocking, it's a pretty special place. I was there in 2016. That was a great game that had a terrible ending for the Orioles, of course, but the atmosphere was electric. And the people of Toronto, and I've gone up there many times over many years, are just so wonderful. I love it. It's like a great city. It's so clean. They're so friendly. There's great restaurants and night spots. So when I've traveled around the American League, you get some favorites, and Toronto's the top of the list for me. And I think if you're in the media business, this still sounds strange to you maybe, but you tend to think of rooting interest as your friends who covered that team. And I got a couple friends who cover the Blue Jays, and I would be happy to see them get to cover a team that won it all. And, Toronto has had a series of disappointments. I mean, every year for the last 5 or 6 years, I look at their roster and go, man, they're going to be a tough out. And then they kind of underachieve, if you will. And this year, that hasn't happened. It's been very different. And they've shown a lot of, want to, or whatever you want to call it. Their offense perked up this year, and look at what they're doing. So I've been impressed with them. And if they win it, that's good with me. I mean, I like to think that the Orioles play in the toughest division, and this will reinforce that.
And if you look at the makeup of the Blue Jays and then you compare it to the makeup of the current Orioles and what they could, I guess, try to create going forward, what do you think the O's would have to do to kind of get in the same position that the Blue Jays were? Because if you look at the lineups and the roster, they don't look all that dissimilar when the Orioles are obviously healthy and they're in that full roster mode.
Well, both these teams have done things that the Orioles have yet to do. and that's sign a pitcher to like $100 million deal. I mean, the Dodgers have a rotation full of them. Their fourth starter is a guy making $100 million, and the Blue Jays signed Gosman, and they've signed some others over the years. And the Orioles, my take going forward is it's time to no more 1-year deals, no more bringing in a guy who is an innings eater. They've got to sign someone this year, I think, that's if not a number one, is like a 2 or 3, someone they can group with Bradish and Rogers to make a real strong 1, 2, 3, and then fill in with the rest, Kramer or whoever else is at the second half of the rotation. So that, to me, I mean, that's the difference. Look at the spending on pitching by these teams, and it's hard to compare the Orioles to the Blue Jays because you're talking about an Orioles have a team 40 miles away in their marketplace, if you will, different league, but close. And the Blue Jays are a national team. They're a team of Canada, and they have a big dollars behind them. So they're going to spend more, as are the Red Sox and as are the Yankees. The Orioles can outspend the Rays, and that's probably it in this division. But that's always been true, right? We're not telling anybody something they don't know. The Orioles are not going to win because they spent $300 million next year. They're going to win because they spent middle of the pack, probably, maybe, hopefully a little more than that, and they made wise decisions. And they won the division a couple years ago without big spending. So it can be done. Tampa's proved it. Orioles have proved it. And they just got to do it again.
Yeah, and that might be a little disheartening to folks out there trying to figure out, are the Orioles going to spend money? I mean, and my answer is always, well, I thought they spent money last year. Did they spend money on exactly what everyone thought they should have? Or probably not. Charlie Morton, Shigano, guys like that wasn't all the big names like Corbin Burns, Blake Snell, etc.
Right.
So what you had mentioned needing to get 2 starters. I was thinking that as much as Elias has probably heard from the fans, not that that's his worry and whatnot, but are they looking at Dylan Cease? Are they looking at the top of that? Looking at Framber Valdez? Or are they more towards Shane Bieber, who's probably working his way up towards the top? Or are they like a Zach Gallo? Like, what are your thoughts on who they would
I
even
don't
be
think
able
we
to
know
get
because the
spend?
Orioles, as you know, Jason, are very secretive about their business. I mean, the manager that they hired, that name never got out. And then, boom, he's the manager. Oh, but I didn't even know they were talking to the guy. I didn't know they'd interviewed him. No, he's the manager. They're that far along. That is how they do it. And so the local media, there was a time when under previous regimes, we could get some, we could learn a little bit about how they do business. Some people would tell us a little bit behind the scenes, and that is different under Elias. He just likes to keep it in-house, close to the vest. It hardly gets out to national media. So we don't know who they're looking at. They're just not going to tell us. But I think time has come to, look towards the higher end of the market. I mean, $100 to $200 million could get you a really good pitcher, but you can't, 20 million for 1 year, it won't, because that quality pitcher isn't signing for 1 year. So Ranger Suarez, what an impressive resume he's got out there. He's a free agent, was with the Phillies. I don't know. Do the Orioles need to go spend $200 million like on Max Fried? Wouldn't that be great? But that's a big gamble for the Orioles, because if they sign that pitcher and then he gets hurt, they can't just sign 2 or 3 more for $200 million. The Yankees can, the Dodgers can, the Orioles can't. So they have to choose wisely. So I'm in favor of a Nate Eovaldi type contract, 2 or 3 years, 60, 70, 80 million. That's a major investment. And you're getting a quality pitcher, someone of that ilk. It doesn't have to be 200 million, but you have to aim higher than 1 year stopgaps. So that's where they're at right now, in my opinion. I really like some of the minor league guys on the way, and I'm a big fan of guys who are on the come, like Trey Gibson. I really, really like him, and I think he's going to be a factor at some point next year.
Now, do you think he would step? I mean, I guess it would depend on health, the different signings that they decide to do. But would they work him into the bullpen right away, or would they try to keep him as a starter all the way through?
I mean, he's a starter for me, but if the staff stays healthy, which they didn't in 2025, he might have to wait his turn, or maybe he comes up in the bullpen if they deem he's ready in the second half of 2026. But I really like him, and I like the Nestor Herman and Levi Wells and guys who, they're top 30 prospects. They're there. They just don't have, like Grayson Rodriguez and DL Hall. We kept hearing about them because they were top 100. They were, Grayson Rodriguez at his height as a prospect was top 10. He was like Basayo of the pitchers. And so everybody anticipated him. And when he's been out there, he's been pretty good, but we haven't seen him in a long time. So long-winded answer of saying the Orioles have a bunch of prospects that I'm bullish on, and I think they are too, and I think they're going to factor in. I'm not saying none of them are stepping ahead of Bradish and Rogers and those guys, but if they need a guy next July, he could be one of the ones they turn to.
Yeah, and I mean it's good that they have on the back end. You can just cement Kramer in as your 4, your 5. In a perfect world for me, it would be 5 if you're upgrading. What another glaring need seems to be the back end of the bullpen as far as a closer goes, and we've thrown out names like Devin Williams and whatnot. But something I mentioned earlier today was with Grayson Rodriguez coming back, and then them maybe easing him in, limiting innings. Do you think they would consider throwing him in as the closer, limit his innings that way, and then next year just pop him back in as a starter?
I don't expect to see that. I wouldn't roll it out. And another guy we haven't mentioned that is going to factor in the rotation right now, according to Mike Elias, is Tyler Wells, who was really good in September. So the Orioles, knocking on wood for them, might have some depth here finally. And as we know, if you think you have 8 pretty good pitchers, 3 are going to get hurt, and then, boy, you're razor thin. So you just have to keep stockpiling it and keep them around and know you have some come on the farm. But I would prefer to see them sign a closer with a track record rather than try to force someone into that spot. And Grayson could do it, but coming off injury and all, do we want him trying to cut it loose with 2 outs in the 9th with 40,000 people screaming and overthrow a fastball or something? I don't know. But the Orioles do have to maneuver innings here for Wells and Grayson and Bradish. None of those 3, they're just going to throw 180 innings, I don't think.
Right.
So they're going to have to sort that out. The good news is if you're a pitcher who has pitched deep into a season before, it's easier to get there than a guy who's a college guy who's maybe through 80 innings, and now you're asking him to go 160. That's a big ask. So it can be done. Crochet, he's bounced up his innings, and we've seen it happen with pitchers. And the Orioles say they have a plan to have Bradish, for instance, pitch throughout the season. You don't want to have shut him down in August. Now you might come up the biggest games of the year. So that plan may be he's throwing 5 innings for the first 2 months of the season. Maybe that's what it is. We don't know yet, but that could be something they look to do.
One other thing that I think that they would behoove them to add is veteran leadership somewhere, whether it's in the lineup, whether it's in the rotation. But I also have been clamoring that I think they need to add a big bat. I don't know what that looks like. Is it a Bregman? Is it a Schwarber? Or are we just are we playing fantasy sports at this point, I guess? So I guess my question to you, where do you prioritize a veteran big bat to help protect the rest of the guys?
Yeah, you love it because the offense was so underperforming this year. And if we talk about that young core getting better, having a big thumper in the midst of all of them would help them get better. Have a guy hit behind Gunnar who's a real thumper. So we're spending a lot of money here. Got to get a top pitcher, got to get a closer, got to get a big bat. Can the Baltimore Orioles, who don't often spend big, pull all that off? It seems unlikely, but maybe they pull off 1 or 2. Maybe they trade for a third party that fills the bill, and they make this work somehow. But a veteran leader who, when they had Chirinos and Odor in 2022, the Brandon Hyde said they showed us how to win. They didn't do it by great performances on the field. We know that. They were not key cogs on that team on the field, but behind the scenes they were. And so maybe now for the Orioles, you get a guy who's both a key cog in the lineup and in the clubhouse, because those guys are out there. And the Orioles probably need it because that, they have, their young core doesn't have a guy who's just as a natural leader. They're all great teammates and they all support each other. But if one guy stands up one day and says, I'm calling a team meeting, what? You're doing what? We haven't heard you talk in 3 months. So, it has to be natural. It can't be forced. You can't say, Gunner, you're our leader. You're our best player. He's a good leader. He's a great teammate. But, that guy, early in the time when they were rebuilding, I had some Oriole people tell me we need, for want of a better word, that badass kind of guy in there who will pull a player aside and say, hey, man, you got to run that out, man. You got to, come on, man. You got to play harder than that. And so, you can't make that happen. But there are some players in the game who have the cachet to do that. And the Orioles probably need to find one of them.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's also getting guys that are tough outs because you see when you see these teams in the playoffs and how they grind out these at bats and whatnot. And when the Orioles were in the playoffs a couple years ago, it didn't seem like the same thing. So I don't know. Again, I go back to the big names on that list, but bringing someone into when Gunnar was at his best, I said this earlier today. He had 37 home runs. He had Santander behind him that had over 40 home runs. So being able to bring guys in like that to me seems like it should be one of their priorities.
Well, I'm sure it is. But again, like we said, they got a long list here. So
Right.
it's not like going to the grocery store and just going aisle 4, 5, and 6 and grabbing something that fits the bill. So there's a lot to do. But if going back to what we said a couple of times, if the young core, and look at almost every guy we could name, did not perform the way we thought they would this year. Certainly that's true of Cowser and Adley. Westberg was hurt a lot. Hard to say him. Gunner, as good as his year was down from the year before. So we're thinking we want the Gunner of 2024, right? That's what he's capable of. 850, 900, 950 OPS. And so none of those guys did that. But they all have. Adley's had an 800 OPS. Adley's been a top 10 MVP candidate. So is Gunner. Westberg, we know what he's capable of when he's healthy. So getting this young core back on track, I think it's going to be job one for this new skipper and his staff when they compile it, however they choose to do it, whether it's little tweaks and adjustments they make with individuals, whether it's a way they motivate them that they weren't motivated before, whatever it is, there's a way to do it. And we've seen them do it. And if the Orioles are going to be a contender next year, new acquisitions may be a big part of that, but so will the old guard that's already here and the young guard that's already here.
Absolutely. And it took us almost 18 minutes or over 18 minutes just to really get into the whole reason why we're bringing you on was the newest manager of the Baltimore Orioles, Craig Albernaz. And as you said, I believe with Andy Koska from the Baltimore Banner, he was one of the guys that had him on his list. I haven't seen anybody else, Steve, that had him on their list as a potential candidate.
Right. And within the baseball circles, he was known for being an up-and-comer, and he almost got 2 jobs last year. He reportedly turned them down. And so I'm just impressed with everything I hear about the guy. And I've read about the guy, and I interviewed writing on my Substack tomorrow with Jim Rosenhaus, who's one of the broadcasters of the Guardians, who talked about the attention to detail this guy showed, how he helped them overhaul some of their defensive drills. And he's big in both helping them steal more bases, which the Guardians were good, and helping them cut down base stealers, which the Guardians were very good at, and his former catcher. So he's known to be, he keeps the team clubhouse loose. He has a way about joking with players that he just connects with them. And so he's going to need to do that quickly in Baltimore, but he did it quickly in Cleveland. And I think the Guardians knew their time was limited with this guy because he's just a hot prospect, as we're finding out. I don't think the people around, general fan bases maybe knew the name, but I think people in the industry did. And maybe that's why the Orioles pulled the trigger on this move now. Maybe there were a couple other teams they were going to compete with for this guy. And it seems like he'll tell us more when he talks to the media next week. But it seems to me like I'm going to guess here, because we don't know the answer to this, that he targeted this job. He looked at the young core. He looked at the fact that the new owner's making noise like he's going to spend. Beautiful ballpark, great fan base. What's not to like about the Baltimore Orioles right now? And he was attracted to them as they were attracted to him.
I mean, I think besides the Orioles, the other two most attractive jobs, I think, are the Braves and the Padres. And
Right.
I heard other names with those teams. So this was actually the first I've heard this. So for me, it caught me off guard, but I mean, I think it's great from everything I've read thus far. Was there a different direction that you had an inkling they were going to go, or a prediction that you had thought? And did this just throw you for a loop as well?
Well, we didn't hear his name, and then it's on Twitter. He's about to get the Oriole job, so that didn't shock me. That's happened before, and it's just that they kept it under wraps. But I mean, he interviewed for the Nationals job. I don't know how regarded they had him on their list, but I'm just impressed with the guy. Now, the last three hires have no previous major league managing experience in Major League Baseball. There's been 4 managers hired. 3 of the 4 have never managed a major league game before they got the job. You know, is that the trend now in baseball? It just seems like this experience is not that important. And having an experienced manager come in, unless you get like Bochy, who's won 3 World Series, okay, that would be like, wow, they look at this guy. But he doesn't want to manage anymore, I don't think, at 70 or whatever his age is, around there. So I think they got a guy they like and they think is going to be the right guy. We'll know soon enough, I guess, when next season starts. And if they start well, people go, hey, look at this guy. If they don't, they're going to be like, they could have got a guy with more experience. So we know what we're going to hear. And I just think everything I hear about him, never met him, seems confident, well-schooled in the game, played in the minor leagues a long time, a lot of AAA experience on his resume, never played in the majors, but he knows how to connect with players. He knows somehow how to bridge the old school tactics with new school analytics and stats and new school ways of doing business. Any manager now is going to have that. And it's not Earl Weaver. You can't rip into guys like he could in his day. You got to coddle them a little bit. You can't call them out in the press. No manager does that. But you can call them in the office out of the limelight and have talks that are stern talks to direct guys. And I think I hear he's capable of that. And he supported the players in Cleveland by getting at them when he had to, out of the view of the camera, and supporting them when he had to.
I guess the last thing I'll ask you, and then we'll get going here. As far as the coaching staff as is, do you see any of the current coaching staff coming back or all reassigned? Any thoughts on that, or it'd just be a guess?
It'd just be a guess. And some media has hinted that maybe he's the one that stays. It sounded like he connected really well in the second half of the year. It sounds like Tony Mansolino is going to go elsewhere. A couple of my peers who report for various outlets have reported that. So I would expect massive changes on the staff. It'd be very unlikely if 3 or 4 guys are back, that many. 1 or 2, maybe. Maybe he's being told he has to keep 1 or 2. Who knows what agreements are being made? But it seems to me like it'll be very different coaching staff.
Let's hope it's for the better. And I guess that is all of our time tonight. Steve, thank you so much for joining us for your first ever Dad Bods Crabcakes and Sports.
We definitely got the dad bod part down. So, man, I fit the show in that regard. I definitely do. And I enjoy talking to you. And I hope the readers will check me out and your viewers on Substack. As we know, Steve on baseball.substack.com. That's how you get to my Substack, where fans find me now. We have a podcast there. We do videos, take some comments from fans. And so that's been where I have been covering the team this year. And I've enjoyed doing it and hope to just keep building my my own little corner of the world there.
Well, please check out all Steve's stuff. Steve is great. I've been following him for almost 20 years now. So
making me feel old. But I
So for
am a
all
little bit.
for all you guys out there, thanks again for tuning in to Dad Bod's Crabcakes Sports. Give us follow us, give us a like, 5-star review. It really helps us out. For Steve Melewski, I'm Jason Weisbecker. You all have a great evening.